Did anybody not use text content or inner HTML when they did this? Anybody do it a different way?
You mean for the color?
No, I mean for just sticking the paragraph inside the other thing. Let's learn another way anyway. Inner HTML is not particularly fast, and it just feels a tiny bit gross because we're not messing with the DOM. We're writing more HTML, then it has to parse that again and turn it back into the DOM. So once we're dealing with the actual DOM, we're dealing with a bunch of objects. So we could actually create the new element as a DOM element in JavaScript. And it all happens a little faster, and it just feels more structured. And I want to teach it to you. So we're going to do it that way real quick. So we have our div already that we grabbed off the page. And inside the div, we want to put a paragraph. So instead of just messing with the div's inner HTML, let's create a paragraph. Const p equals, how on earth can we possibly do this? It must be really hard. Document dot create element. That sounds good. Cool. What do we need to tell it? Let's look it up in the docs, because we should get in the habit of doing that thing. DOM create element. Hey, there it is. Top 2 results, and you'll find this for most things, are MDN, the Mozilla Developer Network, which is, for all intents and purposes, the official documentation of the DOM and JavaScript, and W3 Schools, which covers pretty much the entire API as well, and has some more examples and is maybe slightly more accessible, but a little less detailed. So let's look it up on MDN. In an HTML document, the document create element method creates the HTML element supplied by the tag name, or an HTML unknown element if tag name isn't recognized. Syntax, document.createElement, tag name. And then in brackets, looks like you have an optional second argument for some options. So document.createElement P. Yep. If you put some nonsense in there, it's going to give you one of those unknown elements, and that's not going to do you much good. But if you just put the name of a real element, like div, or button, or P, it'll do that thing. Yay, now we have a P. But there's nothing in it. Now we could use the inner HTML on that, but we don't want to do that. Setting the text content seems acceptable, though. That's just a string. So we could say p.textContent equals this stuff, the name and the age. Backticks again instead of quotes. So then, how do we put it inside the div? What do you think would happen if we just said inner HTML equals this? You're going to say something like HTML paragraph element or something, like when we tried to set a DOM node to text content. Yep, object HTML paragraph element. So we won't use inner HTML at all. Oops. Instead, we still have the div, right? So HTML elements have, ooh, it's right there, appendChild. Append meaning add to the end of something, right? So if you have the parent element and you want to append something to the end of it, appendChild is a function, and you just pass the child as an argument, in this case the paragraph. blah, 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 hoopity-doo. Still works. This may not seem to gain you much, but it's a little more structured. It performs a little better. And once you start doing a lot of stuff, that's going to matter. And it makes it a little easier to break out into separate functions later, I think. Yeah, Keith.
It's also make it a lot easier to do color.
It makes it no harder, certainly, yeah.
It also makes it so you can do it independent, so that you have each paragraph or each input is its own color.
So we could do that with inner HTML, but it may not be obvious how. We'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, I like it for that too. So this seems to work. Document create element, element appendChild.
So do you suggest this over the other one? Should
Yeah.
just be doing one of
Yeah, going forward. Yeah, now that you know about it. Not that you can never use inner HTML, but we're going to get in the habit of doing it this way. It's going to be good practice for stuff we'll be doing in the near future. So I need to tell Git about these changes. I need to label them in my history. Append the stats as proper DOM elements. Yay.